Americans are having trouble paying their bills and saving money, even if they are not living in extreme poverty. Low-income Americans are increasingly showing signs of escalating financial strain, like falling behind on rent and struggling to buy food.
Even some with six-figure incomes are struggling to feed their families. The majority of Americans don't make enough money to cover some of the basic costs of living, like healthcare and rent.
I've been making content about these topics for a while now, and I thought I'd heard every crazy statistic out there, but this new information that has just dropped has me absolutely speechless. I had to sit down and really process what I'm about to share with you, because it's honestly disturbing. So get this. There's fresh research revealing that close to 40% of people working hourly jobs in America are telling researchers that if they could just survive from one paycheck to the next without sinking deeper into debt, that would actually represent progress from their current reality. Let that sink in for a minute. We're not talking about people wanting to save money or build wealth. We're talking about people who would consider it a victory just to break even every 2 weeks. That means these people are currently getting by on borrowed money, credit cards, those installment payment apps, personal loans, whatever credit they can access. And honestly, when I first read this, I had to double check the numbers because it seemed too crazy to be true. And here's what's really driving people over the edge. Everything costs more. And I mean everything. You go to the grocery store, what used to cost you maybe $120 for a week's worth of food is now pushing $180, maybe $200. Officially, they're telling us groceries are up about 32% since 2019. But most people I talk to say it feels more like 60% or 70%. My neighbor told me her electric bill went up 40% compared to last year. Same usage, same house, just 40% more expensive. Her rent went up $300 a month. Her car insurance doubled. And her wages, they went up maybe 3% if she was lucky. This is the story playing out in millions of households right now. People are working the same jobs, putting in the same hours, but their money is buying less and less every month. And here's the kicker. The government keeps telling us that inflation is under control. They say it's around 2.8% or whatever, but go ask any regular person if their cost of living only went up 2.8% this year. So what's the Fed doing about all this? Well, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Their official job description says they're supposed to maintain stable prices and keep employment high. And even though there's nothing actually federal about this institution, it's really just a collection of private banks with a fancy government-sounding name, they're making decisions that affect all of us. If they drop interest rates too low, inflation is going to come roaring back even stronger than before. We already saw what happened in 2021 and 2022 when inflation hit 9%. But if they keep rates high or raise them even more, businesses are going to start laying off people because borrowing money becomes too expensive. Either way they go, regular Americans are gonna feel the pain. Lower rates mean your dollar becomes even more worthless. Higher rates mean fewer jobs and potentially a nasty recession. The Fed keeps looking at these official unemployment numbers and saying, oh, everything's fine, unemployment is low. They're pointing to numbers about 4.1%, and acting like that tells the whole story. But that's complete garbage. When you dig into the real numbers, roughly 25% of Americans are what I call functionally unemployed. That's up from around 22% just 2 years ago. These are people who either have no job whatsoever, or they're working but pulling in less than $25,000 annually, which won't even cover rent in most places these days. And this is where things get really scary. Young people, especially Generation Z, are falling into these buy now, pay later traps at an alarming rate. Some reports show that about 3% of young borrowers aren't paying these companies back at all across their different loan products. I heard about this college student who started with a $900 furniture purchase through one of these apps. But then she started using it for groceries when money got tight. Then for textbooks. Then for an Uber when her car broke down. Before she knew it, she had 5 different accounts with balances totaling over $3,800. The monthly payments added up to almost $650, which was more than her part-time job was bringing in. So she took out a personal loan at 16% interest to pay off all the accounts that were charging her up to 35% interest. This is happening to millions of young people right now. These companies make it so frictionless to borrow money that people don't even realize they're going into debt. And here's the thing that really gets me. These buy now, pay later companies are reporting massive increases in defaults. Just this quarter, some of these companies saw customer losses jump by 18% year over year, hitting around $140 million in losses. Now, let me tell you about the job market, because this is where the official numbers become a complete joke. They claim there are millions of available positions, and on paper that might be accurate. But here's the dirty secret. A massive chunk of those job listings are completely bogus. Employers post positions they never ever intend to fill just to create the illusion of growth. Sometimes they're fishing for resumes to keep on file. Sometimes it's just legal theater. Yeah, they already know who they're promoting internally, but they have to post the job publicly anyway. I know people who've applied to hundreds of jobs and gotten maybe 2 or 3 actual interviews. And even when they do get interviews, companies ghost them. They'll go through 3 rounds of interviews and then just never hear back. And if you do manage to find a job, good luck getting paid enough to actually live on. The median wage for new hires has barely budged in the last few years, while the cost of everything has exploded. Now, here's something that should really worry everyone. We've seen this pattern before. Back in the 1970s, we had a period of high inflation, followed by a brief cool down, and then an even worse second wave of inflation. The second wave was actually more destructive than the first one, and it took a severe recession and massive unemployment to finally break it. We had our first wave of inflation in 2021-2022. It peaked around 9%, then came down to around 3%. But now it's starting to tick back up again. If we do get a second wave of inflation, it could be devastating for people who are already struggling. Look, I know all this sounds pretty doom and gloom, and I wish I had better news. But here's the reality. You can't control what the Federal Reserve does. You can't control inflation, and you can't control the job market. The only thing you can control is your own situation. First thing, if you're not already tracking every penny you spend, you need to start, and you need to start right now. That $4 coffee, that $12 lunch, that $8 parking fee, write it all down. Most people have no idea where their money goes. Second, you need multiple income streams. The days of relying on one job for security are well over. Whether that's freelance work, a side business, gig economy stuff, you need backup plans. Third, get out of debt as fast as you possibly can. Every dollar you pay in interest is a dollar that's not helping you build wealth. If you've got credit card debt or buy now, pay later balances, make paying those off your top priority. And while all this is happening, Americans as a whole are carrying about $1.25 trillion in credit card balances right now. That's trillion with a T. $1.25 trillion in credit card balances. Yep, you've got roughly 175 million people carrying balances on their credit cards with an average debt of around $6,500 per person. Now, if you are lucky enough to get approved for a new credit card these days, you're looking at interest rates averaging around 24.5% APR, and that's if you have decent credit. If your credit is questionable, you could be paying much more, 30% or more. The uncomfortable truth is that we've created a system where living paycheck to paycheck is now considered a luxury. That's not normal, and it's not sustainable. When nearly half of working Americans can't even break even every month. That's not an individual problem. That's a systemic crisis. The reality is that wages have been stagnant for decades, while the cost of everything has exploded. Housing, healthcare, education, food, all the basics of life have outpaced income growth by massive margins. And now we're at the point where even middle-class jobs don't provide middle-class living standards anymore. So what are we left with? We have millions of people going into debt just to maintain a basic standard of living. Nothing special, just a basic standard. And eventually, that debt has to be paid back. It has to be paid back. Which means things are going to get worse before they get better. Based on everything I'm seeing, the data, the trends, the policy responses, I think we're in for some rough times ahead. The best thing you can do is prepare yourself financially and emotionally for what is coming. So let me know in the comments what your experience